If you don't know a lot about motorbike gloves, a lot of them can end up looking pretty similar and you might not be too sure which ones to buy. So here are some things to look at when you're looking to buy a pair of gloves. So the first thing to do is to decide whether you want a summer glove or a winter glove. These two are summer gloves, this is a winter glove, and I'll just put this to one side for now. As with a lot of different motorbike gear, there's usually a bit of a trade-off between protection and safety and practicality and comfort. And this is no different for gloves really, and the first thing you want to decide is whether you want a short cuff glove like this or a full gauntlet like this. Short cuff gloves are generally going to be a little bit less protective because you don't have the leather coming all the way up your wrist, and these ones are actually a little bit longer than most short gloves. And for what they are, these gloves are really comfortable and I can wear them all day on the bike with no issues, but they're never going to be as comfortable as something like this because this is just a lot more softer and more flexible, and this has hard plastic on it, so it takes away a little bit of the comfort and it gives you a little bit of protection in place. I'd usually always recommend going for a long cuff glove or a gauntlet style glove over something like this just because it's extra protection. One thing that's really nice about these is that they work better with some jackets. Like for example my leather jacket, it's really hard to get these over the cuff. I usually wear them under and that's a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, whereas these fit under the cuffs of my jackets with no problems. So depending on what gear you already own, you might be looking at something like a short glove because it works with your jackets a little bit better. But if safety and protection is really important to you, then this is the way to go. And while we're on the topic of safety and protection, there's a few different safety features that you can look for. If I just show these to you, you can tell that this glove is a lot more floppy and a lot more flexible, which makes it more comfortable, but it's not going to be as safe as something that's more restrictive like this. This is just much higher quality leather and much thicker leather as well. So generally that means you're going to sacrifice a little bit of feel of the controls, although like I say these are actually pretty comfortable, but in place you're getting something that's a lot more safe and a lot more protective. On the surface these gloves don't look that protective just because they're so floppy, but they're actually pretty good. So you've got the hard knuckle protection and you've also got a little piece of reinforced leather that comes up the side of the pinky here, because that's quite a dangerous area and you know if you crash you're probably going to scrape that, so it's nice to have two layers of leather overlapping each other. It just gives the glove a little bit more protection and robustness. You also have some bits of gel or foam on the palms. I don't really think that's going to do much in a crash, but it does help to dampen some of the vibrations from the handlebars. And again, you've also got little bits of foam on the fingers. And if you look really closely, you might be able to see this green piece of fabric just under the palm here. That's going to be Kevlar or something similar, and that's going to give the glove a lot more abrasion resistance than if it didn't have that. So you can look for that on a decent pair of gloves. But these have a lot more safety features, and you can probably tell by just looking at them. You've got the hard plastic on the wrist here, you've got the hard knuckle protection, and then you've got hard protection on each of the fingers as well, whereas the other gloves only had soft protection. And that includes the thumbs. On the palms, and in my opinion this is the biggest thing to look for with gloves, and I won't buy another pair of gloves that don't have hard palm sliders. And the reason is, in a crash you're very likely to put your hands down because that's just kind of instinct, and if you just have leather like this, there's a risk that it might catch on the ground and either send you tumbling or break your wrist or just send some force up your arm. Whereas if you have hard plastic sliders like this, you're just going to slide across the pavement, which is a lot more comfortable and a lot more safe. The hard plastic doesn't make it any less comfortable to ride in because you're not touching these parts of your palm on the handlebars anyway. So in my opinion, if you value protection and safety, definitely look for some hard palm sliders, and you can find those on short gloves. On these gloves, the ring finger and the pinky finger are attached, so you can't actually move these independently, and it took a little bit of getting used to because I'm used to these gloves where I can move all of my fingers, but with these your ring and pinky are kind of attached together like that, and the reason is that in a crash it's likely that your pinky finger will catch on something and break, so to kind of reinforce it against the ring finger just makes it a lot less likely that you're going to break that bone. And that's a good example of an area where I've decided to trade off a little bit of comfort and practicality for a little bit more protection. You might choose to do the same, or if you really just want a pair of comfortable gloves and it feels like you're wearing nothing, you might go for something a little bit more comfortable like this. You also want to look at how the glove actually attaches to your wrist. So on both of these it's kind of the same system. You've got this velcro up here and then a slightly thicker piece down below. But on this glove you can see that's a lot more substantial. So this top wrist adjustment here is a lot thicker, and so is the bottom bit here. One thing you want to check for when you're checking for how well the wrist is secured is put the gloves on and just see if you can pull them off. You see, I can't really pull these off. In fact, I can't pull them off at all. If you can pull them off really easily, then you don't want to buy those gloves. For example, these are a pair of gloves that are way too big for me, and if I pull at them, they just come straight off, and that wasn't hard to do at all. So these, you really don't want to be wearing something like this on the bike. If you have a pair of winter gloves, you want them to be waterproof because probably at some point it's going to rain. These are the Risha 9904 gloves, which I've done a review on, and I think they're great. I have tested the waterproofness and they kept my hands nice and dry, so that's a really nice feature. The other thing on winter gloves is you might have a sort of plastic squeegee on the index finger that you can wipe rain off your visor with. I tend to not use that, I tend to just wipe my visor with the palm of my hand, but that's nice to have as well. And again, you want to put them on and just make sure that you can't pull them straight off again. When you're looking at a set of winter gloves, look for materials like Thinsulate. That's a kind of synthetic insulation, and I find that that's really good at keeping your hands warm. If you have a higher budget or you ride in temperatures colder than about 5 degrees Celsius, then you can look into heated gloves as well. Those do a really good job of keeping your hands warm. So hopefully that gives you some information to work with when you're looking to buy a set of gloves. You've got short gloves, long gloves, and then winter gloves. All three have different features, so it really just depends on what you're looking for. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments, and in the meantime, safe riding, and I'll see you in the next one.